A lot of bands I've mixed have asked for a guitar tone similar to this band, The Story So Far, and I happen to know exactly how their producer, Sam Pura, achieved their iconic guitar tones. But even better, I've worked out how to achieve it with just plugins. So in this video, I will walk you through how to get a great sounding tone that's similar, and you won't need to pay thousands to record at Panda Studios. So keep watching if you want your guitars to sound like this.
I won't have any left. The same old basement, a different afternoon. I just woke up on a couch in someone else's room. It's 2 p.m. I've slept the day away. I've given up my youth.
So to achieve this tone, you'll need a clean guitar amp plugin, a dirty distorted amp plugin, and a room reverb. I'm a big fan of Neural DSP, so I've blended 2 of their amps, but this can be achieved with whatever you have to play with. So let's look at the dirty amp first. So let me play you just this distorted tone by itself. So that's a nice, warm distortion, but it's lacking note definition, and it's lacking pick attack definition as well. So put that in a mix, and those guitars are going to sink back and you'll lose them somewhat. It's obviously a bit too distorted for this kind of emo pop punk sound that The Story So Far are known for, but that's where blending in a clean amp comes in. So for this tone, I've used the archetype Corey Wong, but you can use any clean amp that you have at your disposal. So let's hear the clean amp by itself. Yeah, it's really clean. I've obviously pushed it a little bit because as I was playing around with this, I preferred the sound of the clean amp when it was at the edge of breakup, which is what I've done with this tone here. And again, that sounds a little bit too clean for that kind of emo pop punk sound, right? So let me show you now with the distorted amp, and then I'll bring the clean amp in and you'll hear just how much definition it gives. Then when I remove the clean amp, you'll realize how much we're now missing what's important. So let's start with just the dirty amp. Now let me add in the clean. Hear that? You've got all the note there now, the definition. It's not just being lost in distortion. And that in the mix is going to be really important. Let me play it through and I'll bring the clean amp in, turn it off and on, and you'll hear what it's doing. So we'll start with it off. Hear how much we lose that rhythm of the pick attack and the strumming. Listen again, that's the main thing that really disappears when you have the distorted amp by itself. Just quickly, if you make music like this and you want me to mix your next song, then head over to my website terrybeckleyrecording.com, scroll down to the contact form and send me a message. I will get back to you. The link is in the description. You also have a great sounding top end to the guitar. It's not harsh like it would be if you tried to get that same kind of brightness out of a dirty amp. So by themselves, they wouldn't work for this pop punk sound. But together, you get all the drive and attitude plus the pick attack and note definition. And how you arrange them in the mix is like this. So you have one guitar part, this chorus that we're hearing, and you record it twice like you would with any double-tracked guitar part. So let's call the first recording Guitar Performance A and the second recording Guitar Performance B. So what Sam Pura did was he had Guitar Performance A from the dirty amp panned all the way to the left. Then with that same recording, Guitar Performance A, through the clean amp this time, also panned 100% left. Then Guitar Performance B from the dirty amp all the way to the right, and the same with the clean amp, all the way to the right. So you have a wide stereo sound with Performance A panned left from both the clean and dirty amps, and Guitar Performance B panned right from both the clean and dirty amps. So it's important to note that we don't have all clean amps in one ear and all dirty amps in the other. They're balanced across the stereo field, and that's really important. It makes a great blend of wide guitars that have distortion and definition as one sound. However, there are still some problems with this tone, so you'll probably want to refine it with a bit of mixing. And what I did with this mix is this. So we'll take the distorted tone amp settings first. So I've got the tube screamer engaged here, which I usually use to control the low mids. And the trade-off to that is that you lose the pick attack a little bit and a bit of definition. So in this case, it's perfect because it actually hides the pick attack in the dirty amp and stops it from clashing with the pick attack in the clean amp. So if you have a tube screamer or a distortion pedal you can put before the amp, then great. Otherwise, you might just need to EQ a little bit more if the pick attack from both amps starts to clash. Then I've got the gain quite low, but it's still pretty distorted as you heard. The low is whacked all the way up because we're going to deal with the low end with an EQ later. The mids are actually pulled out here. I always advocate for mids in pop punk rhythm tones because that's where you get the definition from if you're just using a distorted tone. So in this scenario, I've pulled that back, which helps us get a more of a scooped sound from this distorted amp that's going to get filled in with the clean amp later. So I'm sort of fitting them together a little bit, and I'm trying not to use a jigsaw as an analogy there, but that's effectively what I'm doing. And then I've got both the 57 and a ribbon mic 160 here to make it a bit darker because we've got such a bright boost when we add in the clean amp. And this is what that gives us without any plugins or any mixing. It sounds good, but I obviously want to refine it a little bit so we don't have problems when we blend both amps. So next up I use this SSL EQ, and I've rolled off all the way up to 120 Hz here. I don't want the guitars to be too fat because that's not really what you hear in the Story So Far albums. And it's not like 120 is drastic either. I'm not thinning them out too much. And I've rolled off the top end as well, just a little bit, and these filters are very gentle. I've pushed the 8K a little bit to open it up, and that's pretty much it. So really when I show you this EQ off and on, the guitar's just going to open up a little bit. Nice. Next up, Soothe. And I use this de-digitized software amp preset just to tame the digital harshness of the top end, make it overall warm and a bit more analog sounding, or a bit more real sounding. Really cool preset if you do have Soothe, but not essential, so don't worry if you don't. Next up is a compressor, and I love this compressor for guitars. It just really brings them forward. Obvious there's a volume jump there, and I'm not too fussed about that. I mostly just want it to be quite pinned. Cool. And finally, just a bit of EQ, but this is more just when listening to both of them, what I needed to take out from the distorted guitars to allow the clean guitars to sit nicely. So I'll quickly bypass this and bring it in. Thinning it out, bringing some more of the mids out, and then bringing out some harshness here. And of course, rolling off the extreme top end. Cool. Now onto the clean amp. So pedal-wise, I have a compressor before the amp and nothing else engaged, so no tube screamer this time. I've got the bright switch on, I've got the bass pulled almost all the way down, and some mids pulled back, but mostly pushing the presence and the treble. If you look at our cab section here, we've got a 57 and a 160, so actually the same as what we had for the distorted amp as well. And that probably helps it fit together and sound like one sound. So without any plugins, this is what that amp gives us. Yeah, you can hear the rich mid-range there, and the definition, it's cool. So I followed that up with an SSL EQ, very similar to what we had before. Same roll-off, pushed 8K again in the same area. You know, I'm trying to keep things consistent, but nowhere near as much because it was obviously bright already. So let's hear this EQ off and on. Not too much, but again, just opening up a little bit. So no need for Soothe. So straight in with the Renaissance Axe compressor. And it's the same compression as the distorted tone. I'm just pushing the threshold a little bit differently. And then some EQ, but barely anything. So pulling out a little bit of 1.3K there, and then a bit of a dip at 10K where it's probably a little bit harsh when playing alongside the distorted amp. So if I mute these mixing plugins on both the distorted and the clean amp and bring them in, you'll hear the difference that it has. So if I just let the amps fly, it would sound like this. See, now I can hear a build-up of high mids, right? And let's turn on those plugins for both the clean and distorted amps. And we have this. It just really helps them slot together better. And that's great. However, Sampura takes this one step further as he places room mics around his live room in his studio to create a more alive sound. And this is where I hear people go a bit wrong, especially if you've seen mixers add room reverbs into their guitars. Get this wrong and you'll lose the definition that we work so hard for, and it may also blur and wash out your mid-range. So you want to pick a reverb that doesn't make things muddy, keeps the definition, and doesn't take over the sound. This is subtle. We want it to sound like you're standing in the room with the amps. You're not playing guitar in like a chamber or something. So let's pick a reverb that we think will work to keep the definition and just give us that sort of live feel. So I'll start off with the default setting. We'll bring the guitar room up and blend it in with the amps, and then we'll have a flick through and see if we can get a reverb that really suits what we're going for, the right character. See, I really like that studio beta there. It's a real small reverb, 0.65 seconds of decay, and it really added to the push of the pick attack. Have a listen again. Doesn't get in the way of the rhythm of the guitar. And you could take this one step further by cutting some mids or whatever you thought was getting in the way with an EQ. Let's have a play around now and try and remove anything that's making it sound a little bit muddy and washy. Yeah, really subtle here, but I liked how the mid-range was getting depth from the reverb, so that I actually ended up cutting some of the harshness that was coming from it as it was starting to build up with the amp, and I cut the sort of low rumble of it too. And then I would sort of bed that guitar room into the overall sound, because I don't want it to be as loud as it is here. Yeah, nice. So all of that gets bussed down to this verse guitar bus, and I would commit that, so I'd bounce it in place or export it and then import that into the mix itself. And here's what that gives us in the mix.
Same old basement, a different afternoon. I just woke up on a couch in someone else's room. It's Sunday night, I've slept a week away.
If you want to see more videos on mixing pop punk and emo, then check out my channel, as there's a ton of videos there. And if you want to see how I would mix a song like this one in real time, then check out part 1 of my Mixing in Real Time series here, starting with the guitars. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.